Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As always, first time watchers, welcome in general. So today we're going to kind of work on the stereo in the Jeep TJ. It is a 99 Jeep Wrangler. Those of you that watch the channel, I introduced the Jeep in the last video, kind of show you what it is, kind of explained how I came across it and everything. And there are issues with it that need to be repaired, but I drove it all the way from Florida to Illinois, so the issues that we have are minimal and kind of waiting for parts on that stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get started with stereo equipment. I only mention that because normally I won't waste my time and money doing stereo equipment until everything else is sorted out, because as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. So that's where we're at with it. People that watch the channel know that I've got quite a few different project vehicles, so I can't just be spending a ton of money on stereo equipment, even though personally I was a car audio installer for 20 years before I started doing what I do now, and I have to remember that I can't just spend a ton of money on stereo equipment anymore. I'm not in my 20s with no responsibilities, so we're doing this on a budget. The thumbnail says $500 stereo. What you see here is a $500 stereo. We are not going high end on anything. We're keeping everything middle of the road, even introducing some stuff that in the past I would consider to be low quality or super entry level stuff. Basically, if you're putting a stereo in a Jeep, the main thing is trying to be able to have decent sound quality that you can hear over road noise. These things are not a Cadillac or a Lexus or anything, so you aren't going to get great sound quality. That being said, keep in mind there is a difference between sound quality and just being loud. Okay? Sound quality is something that can actually be measured with specialized equipment, and if you're trying to build a actual sound quality system, pick a different vehicle than a Jeep Wrangler. They are horrible for sound quality. Now I know I'm going to get comments from some guy saying I have 415s in the back of my Wrangler and it sounds awesome. It probably sounds loud. As far as it sounding awesome, I don't know about that. If you like it, great. I'm going for something that I can drive down the road, listen to, and not be annoyed with how horrible it sounds. I'm not looking for something that can be heard a mile away. I want something that sounds decent, well-rounded stereo. That's all I am looking for on this. The other thing to think about with sound quality is your staging and imaging. You know, these guys that'll put like wakeboard speakers on the roll bars and all the subs in the back and everything like that, and they say, oh yeah, the sound quality is awesome. Well, think about that for a second. If you go to a concert, do you stand with the stage behind you where all the sound is coming from behind you? I mean, unless you're really weird, no, you don't. So you're not getting the imaging. You're not, in theory, real general basic thought process here. If you're listening to your stereo system and you close your eyes, it should sound like it's coming from in front of you. That's the real basic sound quality rule. I mean, there's a lot more to it. We aren't going to get into it, but you know, keep your I have 415s comments and wakeboard speakers. If you're happy with that, awesome, good for you. Anyway, budget stereo. In the last video, I had already installed the head unit. What I went with was the JVC. It's the KD SX2BT. This is a basic stereo system. I personally have rules when I'm buying a head unit. My rule is I'm not buying off-brand head units. Head units have come a long way in the last few years as far as features and quality is concerned. I think there's been some advancements at the lower end price point. I still make sure I stick with a good name brand. JBC is not my first choice personally, but I installed them for years. They are a pretty quality unit as far as I didn't have a lot of customers come back with issues with them. As far as being full feature packed and everything else, maybe not, but for this vehicle and its purposes, this is a good unit, and actually it has quite a few more options than I actually realized it does. This is what they would refer to as a mechless, which means it does not have a CD mechanism. At the time of shooting this video, it is 2022, so who's listening to CDs really much anymore? The important thing is that it had Bluetooth, so I could stream from my phone, and this definitely does that. The integration with Android is not bad. They still seem to cater more to Apple products, which I personally am an Android person, but that's okay. It works fine. It only has one set of RCA preamp outputs, so if you're hooking up amplifiers or anything like that, then you've only got one set of RCAs on the back, which for my purposes is fine. If I decide to add a 4-channel amplifier later, it'll probably be a small power pack amplifier that I could mount behind the radio or something like that, or something that would be based towards towards power sports or something like that, just to get that compact size. And those typically have high level inputs where you would use speaker outputs out of the radio for that. So that's fine for our application. The RCA output out of this can be configured to either run a full range signal for your normal interior speakers, or it can be set for subwoofer and be able to control the volume of the sub output on the radio. So this will do exactly what we want. Like I said, JVC is not necessarily my first brand of choice, but I'm not going super cheap on this. This was probably, I want to say it was $100 to $115. I kind of forget what it was. It was a month ago now that I bought it, and I forgot to look at my Amazon history. When I went to pick up the Jeep down in Florida, my cousins had told me, yeah, we don't think the radio works in it, so it's going to be a boring drive home. So I had this one shipped from Amazon to my parents' house down in Florida, put it in their driveway, so I had music on the way home. So that's that. Speakers themselves, these Jeeps are 5¼ inch speakers in the rear up in the sound bar, 4x6 inch speakers up in the dash. Now, most 6½ inch speakers that aren't a super deep speaker, you can fit a 6½ in that 5¼ inch hole, and sometimes even be able to utilize the 5¼ inch mounting holes. What I went with is the Polk Audio DB65 1S, 6½ inch coaxial speaker, and I have actually, at the time I'm filming this portion right now, have already installed these in the back because I had one speaker that was just driving me nuts. So these have already been put in. 2 of the 4 holes in the speakers match up with the factory holes, and just had to make 2 more holes with self-tapping screws in the sound bar. Covers everything up, looks great, don't sound too bad. Reason I chose the Polk Audio stuff, like I said, I've done this for many years. I've always had pretty good luck with the Polk Audio stuff, and they are marine certified. Now, although this isn't a boat, let's be realistic. Driving with the top down or something, you can get caught in the rain. Nice to have a speaker that is designed to be able to get splashed or be in a damp location. Typically, that being said, on the actual stereo itself, when I used to sell this stuff and install it for people, I used to try to recommend marine audio head units as well, amplifiers, all that stuff. Back in the day, a lot of people didn't want to go with those because typically the head units that were marine rated were white in color to match boats, but nowadays you can get head units that are marine rated that have your standard black finish to them. This one here is not marine rated, but in case you haven't noticed, I'm fat and pale, so I don't have a whole lot of interest in being out in the sun getting baked with direct sunlight, so the top doesn't come off very often on my Jeep, so I feel pretty confident using this head unit. Speakers, though, I went ahead and stuck with the Polks because, like I said, they're marine rated. Now, like I said, the Jeeps come with a 4x6 inch speaker in the dash. 4x6s, I'll be real honest with you, produce horrible sound quality. It doesn't matter, aftermarket, factory. You can get some halfway decent ones. You can go with what they consider or call a plate speaker, which is a 4x6 mounting surface, but then it has like a 3.5 or a 4-inch driver and then a tweeter mounted within that 4x6 plate. Those typically have a little bit better sound quality, but a lot of times what the problem is with the dash mounting location on the Jeeps is that there's no way to isolate the front and rear sound waves of the speaker because there's no sort of enclosure for them to sit in. There's a company called Select Increments. They make these right here, these dash pods, and this will actually it'll fit into the dash. You do have to trim a metal bracket, and I'll show you guys that, but it will fit into the dash location, and it actually gives the speaker an enclosure to sit in, helps isolate that front and rear sound wave. Comes with polyfill in it. Purpose of the polyfill is to basically break up the rear sound wave and, in theory, provide a little bit better bass response out of them. Now keep in mind, they're a 5.25 inch speaker. You're not getting any real bass output out of them. And same goes with the 6.5 inch speakers. Now those are in an enclosure with a sound bar. You can add some polyfill inside that sound bar and help out a little bit with the sound quality, but I went ahead and put them in without it, and they're doing all right. But anyways, these are the what we're putting in the front, and then, like I said, I wanted to stick within a budget, and I set my budget at $500. That left me all this stuff here. That left me with an extra $120 or so. Got to remember, you're going to have accessories to install all that stuff. Dash kit, wire harness for the radio, and an antenna extension. If you're doing a radio in a Jeep Wrangler, get it yourself a 12-inch antenna extension. You'll want it. But that's all of the parts for the radio. Speaker harnesses too. The pods come with speaker harnesses, and then you'll want speaker harnesses for the soundbar too. Anyway, $120 left over. I decided, all right, this is where we're going to cheap out. And I'm going to go against what I normally would do. We're going to put a subwoofer in it, but we're not doing a separate amplifier, big sub box, all that crap. I have come to the point in my life where I like to be able to still haul things and not have to screw around with an amplifier in the way or a sub box in the way, all that stuff. So I decided, all right, we're going to see what sort of improvements have been made on hideaway subwoofers. Hideaway subwoofers, Kicker came out with one probably 10 years ago or so, and I was never super impressed with it, but they've made some advancements over the years, and other companies have started making them. And I thought, you know what, I'm not looking for ground shaking bass here, just something to kind of round it out a little bit. A little bit of low-end fill. So I thought, okay, let's see what off-brand subwoofer we can go with that would actually give us a little something. That's where this comes in. I don't know anything about the company Rockville, other than probably 4 years ago when I bought my Tundra. I wanted to do some sound deadening on it, and I bought some Rockville sound deadening on Amazon, and it was actually really good stuff. And Need to actually buy some more, but that's neither here nor there. Found this thing. This is it's the SS8P. It is a 8-inch self-amplified subwoofer. It is only like 2.5 inches deep or whatever. Says it has 400 watts peak, 100 watt RMS. The nice thing about it is all of the connections are on one side, so your RCAs and your power all on one side, all right next to each other. Came with an amplifier wiring kit, which the amp kit is kind of cheesy, but it's 10 gauge amp kit, all packaged together, 120 bucks. So we're gonna give it a shot, see what it sounds like. I know it will fit underneath the back seat, so I still have the cargo area, albeit small and practically worthless. I'll still have that cargo area behind the seat. If I decide I need more cargo space for some reason or another, I can flip the seat up, take 4 screws out, remove it, unplug it, set the wires aside, and have the whole cargo area in the back. A lot less screwing around than if you had a full amplifier back there or anything like that. So we're gonna give this a shot, see what it sounds like. For 120 bucks, if it sounds like crap, then well, we'll return it or use it somewhere else, whatever. This is where we're cheaping out and giving it a shot, see what it sounds like. So I am not going to go through in-depth installation, obviously, on the head unit because that's already been installed. Like I said, make sure you get the appropriate dash kit and wire harness if you're doing a head unit. And use good connections when you connect the wire harness. Don't be your typical Jeep person where you chop the harness off and then try to wire it in yourself, because you're going to get stuff wrong. It always seems to happen. Don't always believe wiring diagrams that you find online, because a lot of times they're incorrect. If you don't, they're usually a good guideline, but if you don't know how to test for stuff, don't cut the harnesses off. Spend $8 on a wiring harness adapter and be done with it. It'll make your life easier. Good quality connectors. Even in my parents' driveway down in Florida, I used the solder and heat shrink on the stuff. So do the connections well. Little note on the subwoofer, like I said, it came with a wiring kit and everything that was all packaged from Rockville. Funny thing is, in the instructions it says to use a minimum of 8 gauge wire, and then they go and send an amp kit out that has 10 gauge wire in it. Not a big deal for this particular application because the fuse on this thing is only 15 amps, so it's 10 gauge is sufficient. I don't know why they say to run 8 gauge in the instructions, but anyway. Not going into detail on the head unit, not going to go into too much detail on the subwoofer install because it's pretty straightforward. I will show you my wire routing and where I have it mounted, but I'm not going to follow along step by step with it. It's a basic amplifier installation. Rear speakers, we're not going to go into too much detail either. It's take 4 speakers out, put 4 speakers in, and with the speaker harnesses, plug in. We'll probably do a little bit more in-depth on these speaker pod installs just because they do require a little bit of modification to the dash. But we'll get started on these front speakers and get the camera in there and kind of show you what it's going to take to do those. Alright, if you're doing speakers on these, they're pretty simple as far as the disassembly goes. You got 2 screws right here, just pop those off. Now this is a little bit awkward because I'm working from the side in order to give you a camera angle here, but we'll make do. Pop those 2 screws out and then you just kind of press it out. There's 2 clips on the back of the speaker grill that clip it to the dash. And then your speaker itself is right here. You got 2 options for taking these out. If they are the factory screws, but they are either a 7mm nut driver or Phillips head. There's 2 in the bottom and 2 in the top. pull the speaker out, and then there is a clip on the top. Just lift that clip and it unplugs. All right, if you can see here, there is a metal brace right in the way of where that pod is going to slip into place. So this will have to be removed. You can do it with a pair of good tin snips, or you can get a little Dremel tool with a grinder and cut that out. But that's basically all that it takes to get those pods to slip into place. Make it a little bit easier on yourself. Open up the glove box, remove the strap, and you should know how to do this if you've ever gotten to the fuse holder, which is back behind there, and then kind of lift it up and set it aside. Gives you a little bit more room to work in there. So I'm going to kind of shift the camera around, get some tin snips, cut that out, and do some test fits. All right, your actual pods are going to be labeled as to what side is what. Interestingly enough, for some reason they put right passenger side on these, but the other side just says left side. I don't know why that isn't driver side. I guess, I don't know, they do make these right-hand drive, but that would then make that the path. Why don't they just right, left, and right on them? Whatever. But you can kind of hold them up and see where they're gonna go, and you can tell where it's hitting that bracket there. Like I said, we're gonna cut it out with tin snips. If you don't own a pair of tin snips and you're looking to buy some, I definitely recommend buying decent tin snips. These are Weiss or Weiss or however it's pronounced, I don't know. These, I use tin snips quite a bit with work, and these seem to stay the sharpest and hold up the best. So I'm just gonna lob this off, and it will take some force, but double check, make sure there's no wiring getting caught back behind there or anything. That's gone. Let's see if she fits now. All right, that should work. Let's get the speaker mounted in this. We'll get, you do have to fish the wire through the hole that they've already provided in the back, and get one mounted up in there and move on to the other side. It's gonna be the exact same thing. All right, the selector and commits pods come with 8 short screws for you to mount speakers with. They aren't anything special, they're just Phillips short screws. A couple of grommets. These will go into the back of the pod to protect the wire going through, and it comes with the appropriate speaker adapters. These are basically the same thing that you'll buy to do the back speakers and the soundbar as well. Make sure when you order pods that you're ordering them for the correct year of TJ. There is a difference. The 97 to 2000 models use this style, and then the 2000 to 06, I believe it is, use a different style. And they do make these pods if you want to put a 4x6 speaker in instead of a 5 1/4. So we're going to go ahead and work these grommets into place. And actually, we might have to put the wire through the grommet first and then put the grommet in, but we're going to try it this way. But that's what the grommet will look like once it's installed. Want to start, you'll notice your speaker harnesses have two different size connectors on it. The larger one is your positive lead, the smaller one is your negative. You want to start with getting the positive in there first because that's the bigger one. Yep, we're going to have to put them through the grommet first. No big deal. Alright, that one's in. And that one's in. Make sure you put it in the correct way. You want the red ends with your two individual terminals, you want those inside the pod. Seems like common sense, but you know, it's easy to forget what it is exactly that you're doing, I guess. Get it backwards and then have to take it back apart. Not that it's a big deal to take it back apart, but when you stick it in, I don't know if this will show up on the camera, the lip of the grommet will get kind of deformed. Just kind of take and pick at it a few times and you'll get that lip to pop out of there. So we're going to pull the plug all the way up against it, just so that we have the wire terminals where we can get at it. Drop the polyfill back in there. Then the speaker can be plugged in. At this point, you can just screw your speaker down in there. I'm going to pre-drill the holes just because I don't want to run the risk of puncturing through the grill, but that's basically all there is to it, and then they'll slip right in. Alright, battery in the camera died. It missed my drilling the holes, but I mean it's using a I used to use silver Sharpie and set the speaker in place and then marked where the holes were. Use a small drill bit that's, you know, smaller than the screws they provide. Put 4 screws in. It's not that hard. I am going to go one step further with these because I have it. You don't have to use this, but if you got it, I recommend it. This is what they call strip caulk, and we're going to use that to kind of seal the speaker to the actual pod. A little bit of this goes a long way, so if you are using this, don't get too crazy with it. We're just going to put a little bead of it around the back side of the speaker before we set it down in there, and then when we screw it down, it'll kind of compress it and make for a nice seal around the front side. This stuff is real similar to just a rubbery Play-Doh or something like that. A lot of times it's just referred to as butyl rubber or whatnot. You don't want a ton of it in there. It does have a tendency with hot temperatures and such to get a little goopy and everything. You go and put a ton of it on there, you're gonna have this crap dripping out of your dash or something, and it'll make a hell of a mess when it starts to melt and get all over your interior. So you don't want that. So use it sparingly. Or don't use it at all if you don't want. I mean, I find it helps out, but it's not critical. You can also use some speaker manufacturers, actually, I know Infinity used to, some manufacturers will actually send a some foam tape to use around the backside, and that works real well too. But Polk does not send that, so we're going to use this because we have it. Alright, that's on there. Polyfill back in. Another step that you can take if you like, you don't have to because you're never going to see them in there, but it'll tell you what side is the top. Try to line up your lettering, put them in straight. Again, nobody's going to see it, but you know, it's little details, I guess. Be careful when you're using a drill screwing in speakers. It's real easy to have the bit slip out and then you're puncturing right through the speaker. Even those of us that have done it for years have done it on accident, so be very careful. Alright, any excess strip caulk I'm just going to kind of strip off and get out of there, just so it doesn't create a mess in the future. But I didn't use a whole heck of a lot of it, so we don't really have much to scrape off. That's basically your speaker pod build. You can pull out a little bit of the excess. You can put a little bit of caulk around that and seal it. You can use the strip caulk, or you can use actual caulk, or you can use nothing. You don't have to. Putting a pod in general is going to make a huge difference. Yeah, I'm going to get the other one prepped and ready to go. Keep in mind with these pods, you can't use a super deep speaker. So when you're picking speakers, don't get something with some big massive magnet on it. It won't work. Alright, so we've got our pods all put together with the speakers in them. It's pretty much reverse of the disassembly. Plug them in, make sure they're seated all the way, and then gently place them back in. Watch out for this metal lip on the backside here, that you're not dragging it across the surround of your speaker or anything, because they are a snug fit. Then just use your factory screws to put them back in place. That's all there is to it. All right, so I got the driver's side speaker done as well. Didn't bother recording it. Same as the passenger side. 2 screws, pop the cover off. 4 screws, pop the speaker out. Cut the bracket, slip it in. You know, no reason to record the same thing basically twice. So that's all taken care of. Got everything buttoned back up, tested it, made sure everything works. Still got some tweaking with settings and everything. It's all good. Like I said, I'm not recording the actual subwoofer installation. It's the same as any regular amp install. If you're not comfortable with doing that, any car audio shop can help you with that. But basically, you're going to have your power wire coming off of the battery, run it back to the amplifier, ground it. I used one of the bolts for the back seat pivot bracket, just because I didn't want to drill any more screw holes into the tub than I had to. Just make sure you clean up the surface of the metal really well, so that it gets a nice, good ground. Kind of show you here on the what I did with the power wire. This is kind of I did it kind of as a temporary deal, but this is, you know, basically how I've got it tied onto the battery. Zip tied up to this harness here, runs across, and then through a grommet right down here. That puts it over on the passenger side, which means my RCA cables run down the, or sorry, that puts it on the driver's side, which means my RCA cables run down the passenger side. You want to keep those two separated. It doesn't matter so much on a subwoofer, but always try to run your audio cables and your power cables on opposite sides. But the RCA cables run from the back of the radio along with the remote turn-on wire down underneath the carpet, which you guys know the carpet just pulls right up. In fact, you can see there's the audio cables right there. Make sure you keep it clear of any pivot points with your seat and everything. The carpet in these Jeeps sucks. It's not real thick, it's not well insulated, so you know, if you're running heavy gauge cabling or anything back, you're going to see a bump. So, and that's kind of all there is to it. But take you around back here, show you the power wire does the same thing, by the way, on the just on the driver's side. Flip the seat forward, and this is the subwoofer. I'm honestly, I'm impressed with it. Like I said, it's not ground shaking bass or anything, just enough to kind of fill it all out. Sounds pretty good. I didn't want to cut up my carpet too much or anything and route the cabling. Like I said, this cheap carpet that they use in these things is real thin, so anywhere else you route it, you're going to see a bump in the carpet anyway. But I do have it screwed down into the tub, and I got up underneath it with some silicone and siliconed around the screw holes. I don't like that I had to do that, but they need to be mounted. The sound difference between it being just loosely laying back there and mounted are worlds apart. One thing I did do that I didn't cover, it's not part of the budget stereo install, but I had the stuff laying around, so I did actually go through and use sound dampening material. Basically the whole floor of this thing is sound deadened, just because I had it. It does help a little bit with heat, a little bit with road noise, but I mean, let's be honest, it's soft top, you're going to have road noise. So I am not going to mess around with any sort of, hey, listen to it now, because you're not going to be able to tell what it sounds like on video. So, all right, let me get you set up in the tripod, and we'll close this video out. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this video. Hope it helps some of you guys make some decisions on your audio system for your Jeep TJ. Like I said, this is a budget system, just because I don't have the money to be spending on a ton of high-end stuff. So I want to see what I could do with a little bit of money. This whole system, right about 500 bucks. I'll try to throw some links in the description for the equipment, but you know, if you're looking for, you know, ground pounding bass or, you know, something more high end, you can spend more money. If you have less of a budget, you can get a cheaper head unit, you can get cheaper speakers. Can't get much of a subwoofer for any cheaper, that's for sure. But you know, this is kind of a middle of the road setup. Again, with head units, if you're looking for a cheaper head unit, I would be leery of it. I have replaced a lot of the inexpensive no-name brands. And now when I'm talking no-name brand, I'm not just talking about something that you can't pronounce from another random foreign country. But if you don't necessarily recognize the brand as being a top brand, I would personally stay away from it. Stick with your JVC, Kenwood, Pioneer, Clarion, you know, brands that have been around a long time that you know. I would stay away from the Boss, Pile, Dual, all that stuff, all the Chinesium brands, just because they're cheap. A lot of those companies are starting to be more prevalent in the car audio industry, but car audio has always been an industry where you get what you pay for. And those cheap brands do not have the longevity with them. They also, if you're going to go with one of the, say you want an in-dash unit with a screen or anything, which I thought about doing with this, but I don't want to cut my dash for one. If you're going to go with one of those brands and you're going to go with one of the off brands, prepare for them to be glitchy and slow. The processors they use in them are junk. I would stay away from, save up, get yourself a better unit. But yeah, hopefully this helps some of you guys out. As always, make sure you drop a comment down in the comment section, hit the like button, and subscribe. See more of what we're working on with this and the other projects I got going on here. Thinking maybe the next video here, as long as the parts come in, we're going to be replacing the exhaust manifold on this because it sounds a little bit like a tractor when it's running. It's got a couple cracks in it, so yeah, going to take care of that. Until then, we'll catch you later.